Welcome to Fearlessly Made You. I am your host, Kristie Tobias. Joining me today are guests just striving to dominate in their personal and professional lives while answering the question, what does it mean to be fearlessly made? Welcome back to Fearlessly Made You. I am your host, Kristie Tobias. And, as a reminder, for those of you that are new to Fearlessly Made You or just want to remember a little bit more about why Fearlessly Made You exists, Fearlessly Made You is a spinoff of my book, Fearlessly Made You. I know, same name. And Fearlessly Made You, the book, is about my journey with post-traumatic stress disorder and the reality that, fear exists in our life, but that fear does not have to own our journey. As part of that fear, you guys may be hearing a little bit of the fear of Florida hurricane that is happening right now. We're in the middle of a little bit of a Florida rainstorm going on. But you know what? Just embrace it as part of the journey and the ambiance of Fearlessly Made You. One of the things that I love about Fearlessly Made You, though, is just like I love embracing how we own our journey and don't allow fear to own us, I love embracing people who inspire me and who really live out that fearless existence. So today, we have a fabulous guest, someone who I would consider more fabulous than myself. I know, a hard feat.
Someone behind me.
I know, just a little more fabulous, little sneak peek. So Terrah Card is one of the most inspirational people I know, primarily because she has hair that is bigger than mine. It's fabulous. But Terrah Card has just won her very first pageant, Miss Rising Star 2022, and is the first pageant she ever entered. But really, Terrah has this beautiful ability to basically dominate anything that she does, which I think is fantastic, including her award-nominated horror comedy podcast, Stay on the Line. So without further ado, guys, I'm super pumped to introduce and bring on to the Fearlessly Made You podcast show, Terrah Card.
Oh my God.
Welcome.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
When are you?
I mean, I'm so glad you're here.
I'm happy to be here. I was telling Kristie, I was like, you're going to have to kick me out because I'm going to talk too much. They've always told me I talk too much.
No.
The doctors, they always said I was special.
I mean, you are special in so many ways.
And make sure the girls aren't jumping out.
Bring them in. No, and that's the cool thing, though, that I love is there has been nothing but laughter right now, primarily because Terrah's quick, and y'all know I love a lot of humor.
Never have been my whole life. I'm usually a slow person.
Sometimes we are slow physically.
Yeah.
But the witch mentally is on there. But Terrah, I think one of the cool things, though, about having you on this show is there's so much story. We've been just chatting and we're like, wait, we need to hold that. We need to talk more about that. So I'm just going to open it up. I know this is big ask. Tell the Fearlessly Made You. I know it is nice. It is nice. Tell the Fearlessly Made You crew just a little bit about who you are, why you're here, what makes you tick. Just whatever you want to share.
Well, my favorite color is green. Quirky. Who am I? Well, I'm a drag performer here in Pensacola. I've been doing drag for 4 years, roughly, give or take. And I like to perform. I love to sew. Made my outfit today. Took me about 2 days.
And as if you didn't hear that, made this entire ensemble.
Yeah, this is all patchwork. Like this is not just like I bought a bolt of fabric and it looked like this. Like I took 3 different fabrics and sewed them together. Hair, I gotta shout them out. Hair by Timothy Walker and hair by Babe Rocks Jewelry. So shout them out. And I've been doing drag for 4 years. I've been living in Pensacola for 7 years, which is too long for me personally. And before that, I actually lived in Japan on a military base for 14 years, way up north. Shout out to Misawa Air Force Base. I'm never going to go back there, but
we have to shout out anyways.
Someone's got to feel grateful to be there. And before that, I lived in North Carolina. That's where I was born for 4 years. So add that together, I'm 24, about to be 25.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah, that's what that all calculated up to for me.
Yeah, I'm not a mathematician, so if you can figure that out, whoever's watching, so.
That will be the next challenge. How old is Terrah Card really? We're not going to answer.
I got that Benjamin Button disease, so I'm really 85.
So I think what's cool though is, and yes, if you're in the Pensacola area and you haven't had a chance to go to any of Terrah's drag shows, you are missing out, and shame on you. So that is where we met prior to that, but I think it was the drag show where we really connected.
Yes, we connected there. The first time I connected with you was actually when we were in the downtown crowd.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, let me follow all these podcasts and shows. And then I looked at Kristie's and I was like, oh, this is a lot better than mine. I don't know why I was nominated for Best Podcast of 2021.
Dead.
Yeah, but I just started. Y'all's show is like... There's budget in here. Mine is recorded in my room, sometimes on a Zoom call or a Discord call. And, but you know, I like to have fun. It's a horror comedy podcast called Stay on the Line. And I will talk about horror movies or TV shows or just crazy things that happen. Did you know that 17,000 people a year are injured from escalators and 36 people die a year from an escalator? Average. We are more likely to die on an escalator than on a roller coaster.
I would like for us all to stay off of both. Take an elevator from now on.
Can you levitate down?
That's an option.
Well, that's called falling. So
there's a moment of levitation before the crash.
yeah, you got to beat gravity at some point.
That's the thing.
So.
That's definitely it. But you know what's so cool though that you said is I didn't know about Stay on the Line podcast until Downtown Crowd. So we were both in Downtown Crowd as Terrah mentioned. And so then afterwards I was going through everyone's podcast. And the thing that I love is that each of us in this area are just so creatively doing our craft and just kind of owning whatever that looks like for us. And I think that's what I love about you, Terrah, is there's so many different layers, so many different layers of who you are in such a beautiful way. But I want to know from you, especially within Pensacola, within the drag community, within the podcast community. I mean, there's just so many different places. Have you found that you're kind of building and bringing like your passion, what makes you authentically you to each of those areas? Like, I'm just curious about that for you.
Okay, so the thing about me was I was always good at everything. Not really though, because I was tennis captain and I was garbage at it. But like growing up, like I was like, I love to paint, I love to draw, I love to do this, but I never felt I was the best at it.
Okay.
So even like before I was doing drag, I was in journalism at PSC. I was in the newspaper there, which was called The Corsair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to The Corsair. I actually have a few like photography awards of like working there. And even before that, I was like, I guess journalism's the best thing I can do. But I never really found out like what I was good at. I just knew I loved art. Like I loved, like since growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends. So, and you know, being a child of a single mother with 3 kids, including myself, being a loser, I kind of had to find out ways to entertain myself. Oh. So with that, I kind of like, I remember my mom would just like buy Burger King because she couldn't cook for us all the time. And I would just like take the like little chicken nugget box and put straws through it and make it into like a little figure and like play with that with the fry box and all that stuff. So drag was that point where I just like, it finally like I have this whole web, but there's no points connecting, you know?
Yeah.
No correlation on this plot.
Yeah.
But drag finally was like bringing everything together. I was like, what I envisioned in my mind, I could make into outfits. And, you know, talking and communications was just something I was always the best at in my eyes. That's why I won Q&A in my pageant.
I mean, definitely.
Yeah. But it finally brought everything together. And I think that's what I liked about doing the podcast was I started in late 2020 because I was like, damn, I'm like really depressed. I don't talk to anyone like I used to. And horror movies were just like those moments in my life where my friends just circled around. We put on a movie and we laughed about it, like a horror movie. If it was like scary, we'd be like, oh shit, that was scary.
Yeah.
If it was a funny movie, you know, it was just something for us to talk about. So I was like, I'm going to bring that back because I used to have a podcast. I'm not going to say what it was. You don't even look it up because I took the videos off. You okay?
Like find it.
Yeah. And it was just literally me doing myself. And I remember one time recording, I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I'm back into the podcasting world. And doing drag too has also just like helped me elevate myself. I told Kristie this too, that like a lot of people might have a different persona when they're in drag and out of drag, but I'm pretty much the same crazy person. So, yeah.
Which is really interesting because, and I want to dive into the drag conversation too, even more so because one of the things that I think I told you, I did tell you, so growing up in the pageant industry, one of the big things that the pageant industry is connected to is actually the drag industry, not fully embedded because that's disrespectful to any industry to say that you're fully embedded, but because in the pageant world, there's, we do have outfits and you've got a lot of the makeup and a lot of the things. There were, for me, I found a lot of inspiration from drag queens a lot of times because there was this ability to, I almost want to say like maximize who you are authentically. And in the pageant world, you had that. And this was, back in the day in the pageant world, you could do that. Now people do more of that natural, let me pretend like I don't have any makeup on, liars, different conversation.
Oh, the makeup look? Yeah, I work in makeup. So like, that's the trend. It's just like,
it is.
I'm going to buy this tinted moisturizer. That's not going to look like I have makeup on. It's like, then why do you put it on?
Right. So that's the thing. And it's not saying any is better or bad or anything like that or
allegedly,
worse, but
no.
allegedly.
The views of me do not reflect those of the host.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think the cool thing though is, and I really want to get into this with you, is the drag world for me, my first experience truly like with getting the chance to be behind the scenes and actually help support putting on a drag show was in undergrad, when I was an undergraduate in North Carolina. And I remember I was part of at that time, it was LGBT community. And so at that time, we were putting on a drag show to raise awareness. I think it was suicide awareness on a lot of things that were going on. And so being behind the scenes, I remember she was a drag queen specifically dressed like Whitney Houston. And she came up to me and she was like, I just wanted to tell you how beautiful you are. It has nothing to do with the way that you look. It's just like your energy and your vibe. And I was like, I fell in love because I was like, back there was such beauty and grace and honesty and just really cool, authentic vibe. And so I say all of that to say, I'm so interested from your lens and from your perspective, how your work in drag kind of started, how it's kind of progressed. Because like you said, when we have seen each other, whether you're in drag or not, you're the same person, like the same exact person, just maximized. And so I'm just so curious from your perspective on like kind of what that journey has looked like for you.
Okay. Well, just to tie back into what you just said about that person complimenting you, I think that's very important. I like to do that at my shows too. It's just like sometimes some women or some people in general aren't told that enough in their life. And I try to make that a thing when I see some people, especially if they're like, they might be a little bit closed off. And it's not like I'm lying to them. It's like, no, I'm being genuine. I like this about you. And they could hear it all the time. They might not hear it all the time, but I feel like in that moment, I just needed to say that. And sometimes people aren't told that a lot because I necessarily wasn't told that a lot. And I was on the call with my friend Alessina before I came here, and she was like, she mentioned something about my makeup, and this is just kind of ties into your question. I didn't know if she was joking or not, because when I started out, I was a booger left in the sun, like dried up, crunchy. Like, I did not look right. And you know what? In a few years now, I might look back and be like, I don't look right now. Okay. In 2 minutes, I might be like, damn, she looks weird. But like, this was like something that kind of took me years up to. And, 4 years is not that long in terms of some drag entertainers who have been doing it for 30 years.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I starting out, I was making headpieces all the time. I was kind of deemed the term club kid. If you know what a club kid is, it's kind of just somebody who's a little out of the box, making weird creations. And I still consider myself that, but the good thing about me and what makes me talented is I can do it all. So not to blow compliments up my own ass, but I feel like someone's got to do it.
You're allowed to.
Someone's got to do it. Yeah, she's still there intact. But yeah, for a while in drag, I couldn't afford hair. So I was making these headpieces out of craft foam, these big headpieces. And some people are like, we missed the headpieces. I was like, Mary, those were falling apart in my car when I would go to a gig because they were made with hot glue. So with Florida, I remember I left one out in my car all night. And then I woke up and it was pieces. So that was just I think some entertainers, or newer entertainers, they want to be perfect before they start performing. They want to have the perfect thing. But I think think it really humbles me to look back on some of the photos and be like, damn, she looked real ugly. But, you know, it builds character. I think it builds character.
Well, and I think you said something that's important, though, is like, some people want to be perfect just to like get started. But what you did was you jumped in and figured it out.
I really did. Yeah.
That's so important, because I think I want to shift back to you, from the Fearlessly Made You crew, for our FMY crew, that's one of the big things that we talk about. You're not supposed to be perfect to go after what you love or to try your passion. Like, these imperfections are growing tools. They're important. And so I think I love that you say that. Like, you were like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to figure it out. But then you learn from like, oh, that wasn't what I thought it was, but it helped.
Yeah. And if you want to hear more about what Fearlessly made Kristie, she has a book. So you should get the book. It's on Amazon too, right? Yeah, get it on Amazon. And I think the best thing that can like fearlessly make you is to not hold back.
Yes.
And what people might say is like, sometimes they're like, well, I want to start drag, but I don't know what to do. I'm like, then just do it. If I kept asking myself like, oh, I need to do this and that, I wouldn't have done it. The only thing I knew for sure when it came to drag was like, I wanted to make all my outfits. Like, the first thing I ever sewed was my first thing I wore in drag, which was a like 50s style dress with like panels on it, a lapel like this, cuffs on the sleeves, buttons on the side zipper. I didn't know how to sew. And it came together, but I was like, what the hell was I thinking? People like sew a pillowcase the first time they do like sewing. I did a whole non-stretch outfit, and I can't fit in it anymore because I was a skinny 180 at that time, and I am now at a comfortable 200 pounds.
Hey, that's beautiful, 200. Well, and that, though, is the thing. It's like, I don't know how to do it. I guess I can't do it. You're like, I don't know how to do it.
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I think that's the best thing to kind of pull from that. And I like, just to go off of what fearlessly made me, because I'm psychic, and I know that question's going to come up, because why the hell would we not talk about, you know, what inspired this show, the Fearlessly Made You. I'm not going to pick it up because I'm going to drop the book. What Fearlessly made me was, and this, not to sound like this is going to sound like a joke, and I put it in my talent too, is like, what made me was the trauma I went through.
Yeah.
The trauma that I endured my whole life. And I think if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be the person who I was today. And the main thing about that was growing up on a military base for 14 years. You know, if you're a queer person on a conservative military base in the middle of nowhere, like Tokyo was 9 hours away from us. I'm telling you, we were not. My graduating class had 43 people in it.
Wow.
So
and were all of those people part of the military base? Like, it was full military base class, or like were there other people in the community?
So it's the Department of Defense. So it could be like someone whose mom might work at the commissary, or someone's parents who are teachers. My mom was a teacher. My dad wasn't really in the picture. And it could be like people who work on the base, who work for like contractors for the base, like things like that. They don't have to necessarily be like serving in the military.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and just growing up my whole life, like, you know, people tell you like you're gay or stuff, and you don't even necessarily know what that means, but you know, you shouldn't be that there because everyone was talking about it. Like, when someone was gay on the base, everyone was talking about it. Everyone was talking about it. And they weren't saying lovely things, you know? I was like told, like, I remember like seeing like gay figures on TV and stuff, like even like Adam Lambert, like, I was like, everyone was making fun of him. You can be like that. You can be like RuPaul. I didn't even know what drag was until I moved to the States. I didn't really know what being gay was until like 2016, 2017.
Wow.
And like, I remember when I first moved here, like someone asked me if I was gay. I was like, no. Like, and that was 2015 when I moved here. I was just like, and I came back to her like a few days later. I was like, why am I hiding? I don't know y'all bitches. I don't know y'all bitches. The thing about me was like living on that base for 14 years is they knew who I was, and that like there was a whole image with that, especially with my mom.
Yeah.
Like people talk, but I didn't want to like necessarily be the butt of the joke for everything. And you know, people obviously talk about me behind my back. That's just a given with a small community. So that's why I said earlier, I was like, I'm never going back there. And I don't even call myself my name out of drag too often, unless it's sometimes at work. That's really work and my family are the only people who call me by my legal name. I'm not even going to say it now.
Yeah.
And that's just because it reminds me of the kid who I was, who just hated himself, who didn't even know who he was supposed to be, because everyone's telling you that this is wrong. So it's just like, well, I don't know how to feel. I had sex for the first time when I got out of high school, and I was like, I don't know if I liked it. Maybe I just don't like anyone. But then I had sex a few days later, and I was like, no, it's pretty good. Okay.
Right way.
But you know what's funny though is like at that time I thought I was gay, but within the past 2 years I'm like, no, I kind of like women too, and like, you know, I'm kind of like a little bit more like pansexual, open up to that stuff. So I'm like, why not? Don't knock it till you try it.
And that's the part too. And first of all, thank you for the vulnerability and transparency, because I think that's exactly what we want. And y'all know this. Fearlessly Made You is all about that. Little winky wink. But I think too, what I love from a little more serious note, but is there was a total life that you had, that you were living, that was so not you. Mm-hmm. And there was so much pain there. And I think that's very much what we connect and relate to, is when you go through trauma, sometimes you don't even know it's happening until you're out of the trauma or the traumatic situation. Mm-hmm. And when that light kind of gets shown on, oh, like this is where I am now and who I am, it's a little startling and a little scary, because it's like, but what does that mean? And what does that mean to everything that I've known up to this point? So did you have kind of like that startling moment when you when 2015 rolls around, you're like, oh shit, like I'm here?
Not even then. It could have probably been in the past few years, really. Like I remember like sitting back and finding out, oh, I have an eating disorder. Some days I just won't eat, and I'll to the point where I just forget to eat. And that's not normal. Yeah. I mean, that is not normal. Like to where you just have a headache because you haven't eaten anything the whole day. Your body should be trained to just do that. But I just remembered, I just like thought, I was like, oh, for the years of like, when I was just like, because I was a pretty chubby kid and I lost a lot of weight too. Not because of that, but because I was working out, whatever. But I remember like growing up, I was just like, sometimes I just need to smell the food, and I think that should be enough for me.
Wow.
You know, and like, that's just, I realized that within the past few years. So probably like realizing my trauma, and like probably was like maybe 4 years ago, because I don't even go on my boy Facebook that much anymore. Yeah. I don't communicate with many people that I knew when I was a kid. I talked to my mom. I talked to maybe like 9 people, if really close, maybe like 5 people.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like figuring out who actually is not a bad person.
Yeah. Well, and when you say that too, just to pause for a minute, the man or boy that you were, that people knew, do those people know who you are now?
Hell no.
Them? Okay.
Hell no, they do not. There's some parts I'm like, there's like some points where like I'm having a stroke. There's some points where it's like, why do I have to argue with people?
Yeah.
And that's like, not to spell my own family business out, but TV is like, when you grow up in a household or with some family members who are aggressive, who are very verbally aggressive, you kind of just give up trying to argue with people. And that's kind of like where I'm at right now. It's like, I'm better off with just cutting off some people, which might be a bad characteristic. But if like my whole life, if I knew kind of how some people were treating me, it's like, if you really want to get to know me, you will reach out to me. But I kind of like separate that life. I'll make like one post every like year, be like, not dead,
still
here. But they don't really know about Terrah. You know, they just know about old me. And there's like some people, like I even have like a personal like private account where I do post some looks that I make for other people. And that's that on that. Yeah. That's like the most that they get out of that. But like some friends, like one of my friends, Maggie, Jaren, Natasha, and that whole family, like they kind of gotten used, like I was comfortable to be like, here's what I do. Yeah. And then people I meet here, I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, yeah, here, you want my business card?
Right. Well, and I think that's the part too that's really interesting is, and I think to a certain extent, people can relate to their parts of your life where people just don't have a connection to you because they don't need to. But that's what you're talking about is really a journey that I think there are a lot of people that are going to be watching this episode that are going to say,
Millions of people
watching this episode, all millions of you.
And they're going to hit that subscribe button and then leave a like.
See, Terrah's so good at this. I'm not. But I think what you said, though, is someone is watching and they're going to literally say, yes, there's that person that I'm not anymore. And who I am now is here to stay and to be what you see. And I really don't care how you feel about that person because this is authentically me. And so I say that to you because when you think about others who are trying to figure out like what their journey looks like, whether they're on the drag journey or whether they're just trying to figure out as, from a gender perspective, like where do I fit and what does that look like? What are some things that for you as you have kind of like newly are really owning yourself? What are some of the things that you feel like people need to hear, whether it's uncomfortable for them to hear or not, but people need to hear as they're trying to go through their own journey?
Well, I'm here to call you about your car's extended warranty. So, no. Honestly, though, let's real talk here.
Yeah.
I'm still on the journey.
You are.
I don't have the answers for everybody, but if some of the things I'm talking to you, and you don't even necessarily have to be gay, queer, trans, whatever, under the umbrella, but you can take some of this advice and kind of go with it. I don't even necessarily call it advice. I'm just talking to you about my life story. And you can hear her life story too in her book, Fearlessly Made You. You can get the hard copy if you want. But yeah, it's just like, I don't think I don't have the best advice to give somebody because I would have to know that person necessarily to give them that best advice.
Yeah.
But you also have to just take into account where you are in your life and what makes you happy. As long as it's not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
And it's not hurting yourself.
Yes.
Just keep that in mind with whatever you're doing. If you're tired where you are living, get that new job, apply for that new job. If you feel like you don't have enough experience, apply anyways. If you want to get that experience, there's plenty of ways to do that aren't cost, crazy.
Yeah.
That aren't cost crazy. Good English on me. I have 2 communications degrees. And
I mean, sometimes cost crazy happens.
Yeah. But, just like, I think that's just, there's too much stress on us. And
yes.
I think we just need to necessarily take it at one step at a time. I mean, I don't know when this is going to air, but we've had some things happen lately with Roe v. Wade overturning. Yeah. And I was just at a protest too the other day, and I was just looking at some, and not to get too political, and I don't want to say too much, but I was looking at some people on the opposing side who were the anti-protesters, and I was just like, is this what you want to wake up to? You're like, I'm going to wake up and just scream at people every single day your own views. And I'm not necessarily telling you my own views or pushing anything onto you. I'm just, do what makes you happy. Don't necessarily worry about everyone else because that's just going to weigh you down. It's going to have a lot more trauma for you. And now I said trauma does build character, and it took me to where I am today. But if there's an option to avoid a lot of things, then take that route. You're your own driver for your journey. You have the wheel in your hands. So, don't swerve into traffic,
I like that. Don't swerve into traffic is what I took from that entire dialogue. But I think what you said, though, is so purposeful because it's what are you choosing? Like, how are you choosing to show up?
Your own destiny.
Your own destiny.
I need a cigarette, a fake one.
I feel like you have so many characters that I love seeing come out as you have these.
140, just as
That's
Twitter.
Fair. I have 1.5. That's it. But I think the taking your own destiny and not swerving into traffic. I know that sounds like a really funny thing for me to latch onto.
No,
but
I
want to.
I quoted pretty well.
I thought you did a great job with that because.
I think I'm great.
You are great. But I think we try to get in other people's lanes. I actually had this conversation with someone recently where it's like,
analogy.
Yes, you're welcome. When it's not, sometimes someone else's lane is not your lane. Get out of it. Like, let people live their life.
Yeah. Unless that person is in that lane and there are kids in that car screaming for help, do not get in their lane, okay? But like, if they're like, listening to music and having a good time driving, why do you need to go into that lane and disrupt their song? They're jamming out to, I don't know, Ed Sheeran. I don't listen to Ed Sheeran. I'm going to, listen to to Tia Marie in the car on my way here.
Yes.
So
yes, you did. Well, and I think that's the point too, is with Fearlessly Made You, we talk about there's your journey that you own. There's the opportunity for you to help support others on their journey as well. Sometimes supporting others is not disrupting where their journey is going as well, but it's also being honest, which I love that you've been able to do, and authentic with who you are, what your journey looks like, the fact that we're still on it. Like, I think sometimes people think like once you start learning, are we learning?
I'm not dead yet.
Not yet. There's a barely breathing. That's not, never mind. Went too far. But went too far.
All right.
I know. I don't know what just happened, but it's that piece of it too, which is there is a responsibility that I feel like we all have to honor our journeys and to honor what we've been through. And like you said, the trauma helps shape you. It's not fun. Mm-hmm. It's uncomfortable, but there's a reasoning behind it all. And there's so much value and benefit. And especially like, I feel like what I've learned from you in your own journey that's continuing, I had no idea how recent a lot of what you've been trying to discover and realize with yourself was. But then I think to myself, and I just released an episode about a phase in my life that I'm in now where I had to shift my own perspective and realize like what I thought was serving me was no longer serving me. Mm-hmm. And that was, I mean, it continues to be hard, right? And every time you unveil something new about yourself, there's something there, sometimes from your past or something there that's painful.
Or people around you.
Yes.
That might not be on the same page as you.
Exactly. But that's all right. Like it is that, don't swerve into traffic, but it really is that stay on your lane, own your journey, and focus on that movement forward. So I think one of the things that I want to close our time out in with you is,
no.
I know.
Keep the cameras rolling.
Y'all already know Terrah's gonna come back. We already know that.
Yeah,
but what I will say, Terrah, is I already, you already knew I loved you, but I love this conversation. It's so purposeful. It's so raw. It's just so honest, which is all we ever want to do with Fearlessly Made You, is just be our honest and authentic selves. And so I so appreciate that from you. And I appreciate you sharing your story and your journey with me, but continuing to drive right alongside me in our own lanes, not disrupting each other, but just loving on each other and uplifting each other.
Yeah, maybe I can give you a hot dog through the window.
That would be nice. I do get hungry sometimes.
Some Buc-ee's.
Oh, never mind. That's a different conversation. I remember Buc-ee's now. That's a whole different, I know. Don't you worry, friends in the Pensacola. I know what Buc-ee's is.
We're going. We're going. I did a vlog there because I took my friend, for my podcast, for my Patreon, which I do have a Patreon. Anyways, what?
No, we're good. So we
are fearlessly made.
Fearlessly made. No, I do. Thank you so much, though. And as we close out our time, I do, again, Terrah Card, you've been fantastic. You have brought me so much authentic, honest, raw conversation, which I love. But you've also, I think, brought us a lot to think about from the perspective of we are all just trying to grow and own our journey. So if you're really thinking about what your journey looks like, own that for you, support and uplift others in their own journey. And as part of that journey too, as you guys know, I always love to highlight other journeys and partnerships that have really brought value and benefit to my life. So again, thankful for one of the partnerships that I do have with Dillard, where they're able to help me own my fashion journey so I can try and look just a little bit more like you. And be a little bit more fashionable, just a little bit. But thank you for that partnership, Dillard. I know I can't. But I don't have
a sponsorship, so...
Well,
it's a bag of bones.
I can't get to the point where Terrah Card is, but I sure can try. And I, again, appreciate you. Thank you for being on Fearlessly Made You. And Fearlessly Made You crew, don't forget to tune in to the next episode of Fearlessly Made You.